Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning in again. Listen, you guys, this video today has been a struggle. I pre-recorded the video talking about how to pay for college and then realized that there was a lot of noise in the background. Spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to edit it, and then just decided that it was a better use of my time to re-record the video. So here we are. I say that to say this YouTube thing, man, it's a lot of work. Honestly, one of the reasons I started a YouTube channel was because I figured it'd be a good way for me to improve on my speaking skills unprompted, and it has been that so far. But the one thing I didn't bargain for was how much other surrounding stuff I would have to learn, right? Like interior design, which I clearly suck at, how to do makeup, video and audio, how to create stuff in Canva. Like, y'all, this ish is a lot of work. But I think, again, these conversations are important, so I'm going to keep doing them. So please, if you know anyone who will benefit from this video, I see you. Think of just one person and share this video with them. I know that the content is not for everyone. A lot of it is pretty basic. That's why I decided to start out. So if you know anyone that would benefit from it, by all means, please share the content with them so that they can get started. All right. So today we're going to be talking about paying for college. And I have a little bit of experience with this. I have two sisters who are currently in college. And I'm a parent. Granted, I'm a parent of an infant, but I have a lot of suggestions about, I decided that it would be valuable to get on and share some of what we're doing as a family to enable that the college process is reasonably pain-free, at least the tuition part of it. And so, please keep watching if this is a topic that you're interested in. Otherwise, please share it with someone that you think might benefit from it. And the three things that I've found to be really valuable in paying for college or in reducing the stress surrounding paying for college have been: start early. The second one is to choose wisely. And then finally, be very creative. So how early is too early, right? It's never too early. Start now. Start now saving money for your kids' college if you have any, or if you plan to have any. And, the more time that you have investing in the market towards college education for your children, the better the return on your investment is going to be, and the less money you're going to need to put upfront of your own money to pay towards college. Now, what do I mean by that? We have a 4-month-old and we already started her college fund because in our minds, we would love for her to go to college. We know that 18 years from now, that's something that she might pursue. And we're not going to just sit here and then when it's time for her to college, we're like, oh, what are we going to do? Because guess what? We knew that it was coming, and it makes sense for us to start preparing now. The reason I'm overemphasizing on this is because there are a lot of tools out there that you can use to sort of minimize the pain that is associated with sending your kids off to college. The one I like to talk about the most is a 529 plan. But I want to acknowledge that you can also invest outside of a 529 plan, which is specifically designated for educational expenses, by just investing in the regular market, right? One thing that you can do is you can buy random index funds or stocks and say, I'm allocating these ones for my kids' education. What that allows you to do is it allows you to have a lot more flexibility versus if you were going to invest in a 529 plan. Now, I personally prefer to do both, right? Right now, we don't have our kids' college fully funded, but we've started the process. And I think what we're doing as a family is trying to do about 75% of it specifically in a 529, and then the other 25% just in regular stocks and index funds outside of a college fund. And why do we want to do it like that? Because we want to get the benefits of both, right? By investing outside of the 529, we have the flexibility that we can pick and choose what we want to invest, and we can buy and sell whenever we want. That generally increases, potentially could increase the return on our investment. But I like the stability that a 529 plan also offers because it keeps us committed. The advantage of using the 529 for me has been the fact that once that money is there, it's there. I'm not tempted to go in there and use it for something else, right? Because I know if I take it out of a 529, then I'm going to have to pay penalties if I use it for something that is not education related. The other advantage is the fact that we don't get to pay taxes on the gains as long as we end up using that money for educational purposes. So, that is a great benefit for me. And is ultimately the reason that we've decided to pack the majority of our kids' educational expenses in a 529, just so that down the road there's no temptation of going to take it and using it for something else. Now, that can be a blessing and a curse, right? Because what if a few years down the road we have something that's really critical and we absolutely need money? We're going to get penalized for doing that. But I think as long as we're being intentional and planning for other contingencies, God willing, we're not going to get to that position, right? And if we get there, then we have a lot of other problems going on, and that is a minor thing. Now, the things I hate about a 529 are the fact that you can't really choose so much what you want to buy within the fund. You're basically limited to the options that the fund gives you. But I've still been able to find some pretty good index funds that are cheap, like they don't cost too much to invest in them, that work for us. And then the other disadvantage is you can't just buy and sell at will. You have specific number of times a year that you can reallocate what your money is invested in if you're investing in a 529. Whereas outside of it, you can do pretty much whatever you want. The one thing that I hear people say a lot, which I would like to push back on a little bit, is, oh, I'm not going to create a college fund for my child because when it comes time for the kid to go to college and they're trying to decide how much aid to give my kid, the 529 plan will work against them. Now, that is true. When FAFSA is considering how much money or not to give your child, they will factor in whether or not your kid has a college fund. But let me be clear. If you're already wealthy, your child won't qualify for need-based aid anyway, right? So if your child is not going to get need-based aid at all, then what's the point still not investing or not planning for your child's education? Chances are, if you make a lot of money, and a lot is really not that much, but basically if you make more money than is needed to qualify for need-based aid, your kid is not going to get need-based aid, and you're going to have to pay for it, or you're going to at least have to do a parental contribution. So why not just start preparing for it now? It's not like it's something that just springs up on you. We have 18 years with these children. Start preparing now, because granted, if you put $10,000 in an index fund today, and let's say it grows at a rate of 8%, in 18 years, that money will double, right? 10,000, double, 20, it double again, 40 grand. Whereas if you wait until 18 years from now, you'll need to come up with 40,000 per year. So if we were to scale that up, let's say you put 30,000 now, double 60, double again 120, versus coming up with $120,000 18 years from now. So, it's just something to consider. The other great thing about 529 plans, which I personally like a lot, is the fact that it's not stuck with one child, right? Like if you start a plan with one kid in mind, ultimately you can switch the funds and support another kid. We would love for our daughter to go to college, right? But who knows what she's going to wake up a few years from now and tell us, I don't want to go to college. In that case, you can always use the funds for her sibling or somebody else. Now, those of us who are Black know the Black tax. there's always going to be someone that needs help with educational expenses that you know that you love, and you can always use those resources for another child. So, don't feel like if I invest money here, what if my child ends up not using it? You're always going to have another source to spend the money on. Also, you can use 529 plan funds for basically other educational expenses. So if your kid decides to go do some technical education, you can pay for their training. So, basically a lot of educational expenses would qualify for this. It doesn't necessarily have to be education. It doesn't necessarily have to be a college education. Just something to keep in mind. I was just talking about college education because those end up being like super expensive, but you can use these funds for even education before the kids get to college age. If you have kids and you plan to send them to private school, so something to look into. Definitely. All right, so now there's some of you who are out there saying, oh yeah, that's great. I wish I knew this 18 years ago, but my kid is 16 or 17 and we're already doing college applications. So what magic are we supposed to do now, Boo? In that case, the last two bullets really apply to you. In this case, you'd have to be very intentional about school choice and also very creative. Now, what do I mean by school choice? There are a lot of universities in the United States, right? I've been to two really good institutions. And your child will have, or if you're a college student watching this or a high school kid watching this, you have a lot of options of places that you can go to get educated. But the truth of the matter is there's a wide range of amounts of money that you would have to pay to go to these different places. So my strategy is always, apply to all the places that you're interested in, put your best foot forward, and then let them all come back with their various scholarship packages. And then you take the one that makes the best sense, including finances as an aspect of your decision making, right? If you got into a really good school, but it was going to cost you $65,000 a year to go there, is it really worth it? Those are conversations that we need to be having. I know that right now, a lot of the time, the parents are like, well, it's the kid's decision. But your child is 18 years old. They're still a child for all intents and purposes. And do you really want to stick your kid with a bill of $100,000, these days up to $200,000 of student loans that they'll be paying forever? These loans can take 10, 20 years for them to finish paying them off. And you will find out that once you have debt, that really limits how much or how quickly you can meet your other financial goals, how quickly you can get to financial independence if that's something you're interested in. So as much as you can, right now is the time for us to stop, do as much as we can to prevent our kids from falling into that pit. So, if you pick a school that is an in-state school, it would generally be cheaper than going out of state. There's also the option of starting out in community college and then transferring to a 4-year college, because at the end of the day, for a lot of degrees, the first 2 years are basically general education anyway. And if you can take your history classes and pay a few $100s versus paying a couple thousand per credit, it makes sense for you to definitely do that if you're in a position where money is an issue. So definitely something to consider, going to school in state and then doing community college. And then on top of that, staying at home while you're in college. It's great to go on campus for networking purposes, for getting the full immersion experience. I had that experience in undergrad, and I think it's a wonderful thing. But I wouldn't pay $65,000 or $40,000 to have that experience. So if you're in a place where those are the choices that you have to make, definitely consider the possibility of, having the child stay at home and paying only the tuition until, the child graduates, and then can go out there and be intentional about networking and immersing themselves in the various cultural experiences that they were going to anyway. Because at the end of the day, a college education is good, but it only gives you the skills to get started. everything else is on you, right? I'm not discounting the fact that if you go to a very good school, it opens a lot of doors for you. But sometimes we put too much value on what kinds of doors it would open, especially if it's not necessarily like an Ivy League. It's just a really good school. So we need to be very intentional about the choices that we're making when it comes to picking a university. And then when I say being creative, I'm referring to things like being intentional about getting money from other sources when it's time to go to uni. There are a lot of scholarships out there that kids qualify for, but that you won't get if you don't apply. Applying for scholarships can be painful, right? Because you're just doing the same thing over and over. But you don't need to get yeses on all of them. You just need to get a few yeses. So if you have a child that is already about to start applying to college, make it their full-time job to be simultaneously applying for scholarships. If you think about it, if you apply for 100 scholarships and you have a 5% acceptance rate, 5 out of those say yes, and maybe they give you only $1,000 each, that's still $5,000 that you didn't have when you started, right? It's a great return on investment, because how much time does it really take you to send in a scholarship application? So definitely have your kids looking into all the scholarships that they qualify for. Make a list and check the list off as you apply for those scholarships. And then if you have a child who is athletic, start early on in the process. Start when they just get to high school, figuring out, what needs to be done for them to be a strong candidate when it comes to go for when it comes time to trying to get into college athletics. Do you need to be recording their place? Do you need to, whatever you need to do, encourage their athleticism, so that when it comes time for them to go to college, you're able to take full advantage of the opportunities that they might have based on that. I know a lot of us are, some of us are just trying to make it. You don't have time to be so involved in your kids' education, but it's something that, really has a good return on investment. So as much as we can, please try to be an active part of that. Educate yourself about what resources are out there. Talk to their schools, talk to their teachers, talk to their guidance counselors, and take advantage of the athletic scholarships that they might have. The other thing is merit-based scholarships. If you have a child who is really smart, who gets really good grades, you can figure out ways to, whatever scholarships they might qualify for from doing those kinds of things. And then also along the lines of being creative, there's the possibility of having your kids take AP classes while they're in high school that ultimately transfer and become college credit. Those are college classes that you won't have to pay thousands of dollars for, because they already got them while they're in high school for free. There's also the thing that a lot of high schools do now, which is, like, my younger sister was able to do this when she was in high school, take community college classes from a neighboring community college, which ultimately transferred to her university when she transferred. And that's a year that is shaved off of her college experience that she doesn't have to do if she doesn't want to. And from a money perspective, that's a year of college that you don't have to pay for. What could be better than that, right? So there are all these things that are out there that you can find if you go looking for them, versus, just sit down and fretting and then wondering what's going to happen when the time comes for your kid to go to college. So again, just to summarize, my tips are: start early, basically start now. And again, this applies even if you don't have kids yet. You can always change who the beneficiary on a college education fund is. So you can start it now with somebody else's name on it and then change it down the road. So the summary is: start early, choose your school wisely, and then be creative about coming up with ways to pay for college. Don't just sit down and freak out and then, in the end, not have anything to show for it. The other last thing is, along the lines of being creative, kids are able to work, right? If you have a child who you're not ready for college, you don't have the funds, don't be afraid to let your child work during the summers and even work while they're in school and raise a little bit of money to add to whatever pot you have. Sometimes it's a collective effort, but as long as you're being intentional and you have a strategy, it's not impossible. So, my plea is that we just get started and let's have a plan, and then we can all do it and help our kids not to get into debt. Again, if you like this video, please, subscribe, share with your family and friends. If you could just think of one person that you think would definitely benefit from this, by all means, please share this with them. I'd be really grateful. And if you would like some help, like if you want me to create a video about how to set up a college fund, leave a comment below. I'll be happy to indulge. And let me know whatever topics you would like us to discuss also in the future. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next week.